Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Belzona podcast, your go-to podcast for all things coating and engineering. I am Richard Bywater, Specification Development Engineer for Belzona Polymerics, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 6th and final instalment of this season of the Belzona podcast. In our last episode, I was joined by some of my colleagues here from Belzona, where we touched on and gave an insight into the idea of QA, QC, so quality assurance and quality control, and what that means to Belzona. We explored some of the processes and checks in place around developing and manufacturing composite materials, as well as touching on some of the main industry and class standards that the product range holds, both internal and external. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a more application-focused approach. We're going to be discussing the need for resin chocking systems. So to take us through this topic, we're going to be joined by a very special guest. I say special guest because he is one of the most senior members of the Belzona Global team and one of the only people who has the experience of, at one point or another, of having worked in each of the 3 Belzona Global offices. So with this in mind, before we go into our main topic, I think it would make sense to use the opportunity to hear about their journey with Belzona and ask some key questions about the current global situation and potentially what they think the future might hold. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome today's guest, CEO of Belzona Inc., Mr. Barry Neisel. Barry, welcome.
Good morning, Richard, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
No problem at all. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's Friday morning, so looking forward to the rest of the day and then the weekend.
Fantastic. I was Friday morning for you. Obviously, for the listeners, you're not. Where are you calling us from? Where you're?
We're here in sunny and very warm Miami, Florida.
Yes. So what is morning for you is 3:30 on a Friday afternoon for us over here in Harrogate. So yeah. Definitely Friday afternoon vibes. This is a nice way to end the working week. So yeah. I mean, have you done something like this before? Is it a bit new to you, maybe?
Podcasts as a participant, as a somebody speaking on a podcast is new to me. I've become accustomed to listening to them. Like much of the world during the recent pandemic, we've turned a lot more to virtual media.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. What's your favourite out of interest? Obviously, there's an obvious answer there, but other than the Belzona podcast, what other podcasts are you listening to?
I've listened to a wide variety. Obviously, like sports, still keep up with football or soccer. But a lot of business podcasts, things that we can all learn from. So I have a wide variety on my devices. Okay, good.
Yeah. You mentioned sports there. I obviously you're now based in Miami, but you are originally a fellow Brit. I heard the soccer reference there. That's still a contentious subject, I think, between us. But is it American football or soccer that you follow over there, or?
I follow both. I can't give up on my team from back home, which is Liverpool. But for a long time, I've followed American football, and I'm a big supporter of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who recently won the Super Bowl. So
of course, yeah.
So all is good.
Fine. Well, you've obviously got the Buccaneers. I have to say I have an extremely limited knowledge on American football. I do occasionally watch the Super Bowl. So this year's Buccaneers win is I'm aware of. But that must be fantastic. Is that in my knowledge, is that something they've won before, or is it quite a?
It's the second time they've won it in the history. So it was 18 years ago they won the first one. This was the second. So yeah, it's been a long time.
Excellent. And then obviously, maybe not so much now with the current Liverpool form, but Liverpool Premier League last season. Let's keep it on a positive.
Yeah. It's a long time for Liverpool. So, yeah, I mean, 2019, 2020 was a good year for my sports teams.
Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so brilliant. Well, thanks very much for agreeing to be a part of today's podcast. I think, as I mentioned in the introduction there, before we get into the Chocking discussion, or kind of the main topic of today's podcast, we thought this would be a great opportunity having you on, of course, to take the opportunity to pick your brain on just some key industry discussion points and find out a bit more about your Belzona experience. You're in quite a unique role where you've worked kind of along a lot of the main industries that we kind of work in all over the world. So yeah, I think the best way to kind of start that is, could you just explain to the listeners a bit about your role as CEO and kind of what that entails?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, I'm part of a great executive team globally for Belzona. My role has several responsibilities, including managing overall operations here in Miami.
Okay.
We manage the resources along with the other directors of Belzona, and we make some of the larger major corporate decisions, and we set the future direction for the company.
Great. Okay. So this is so you've, like many people who we've kind of spoken to as the Belzona podcast season has gone on, you have been associated with Belzona for quite some time. When is it you first joined the company?
I joined Belzona back in 2005, so it's been about 16 years now.
Okay.
But my familiarity with Belzona goes back further than that. I first actually used Belzona almost 25 years ago. One of my first jobs that I had after leaving school, engineering company, and they were a user of Belzona. So I didn't know what it was at the time, but I do recall the distinctive orange and black modules.
Excellent. Out of it, what application was that? What type of thing?
It was actually repairing a shaft and a roller for a food production company.
Okay. That's so is that where your Belzona journey really kind of began? From there, you obviously joined the company, like you said, in 2015. Was that in a technical role, a sales role, or?
Yeah, I began back in the UK for Belzona as a field sales engineer, which is a sales-based consultant type role. Okay. I had a small territory. It was a single county in the northwest of England. And really the position involved trying to help existing or future clients diagnose and identify problems. We then provided the solution to those problems with our range of products and make sure everything went good along the way.
Okay, so how have you seen the company change over the years since you've joined?
Well, the company is continually changing. I think it's a positive change. We're always looking to the future and how we can solve the next problem. We've been under, during my time, we've been under a constant state of growth, and we will continue to grow and evolve. I think the significant changes we see are the investment in facilities, including research, development, production, and training. Both the facilities in Miami are new for training and production and R&D in the last 10 years. And we've expanded the same facilities in the UK and in Asia Pacific. So, you know, the growth has been phenomenal. And add on to that, the evolution in marketing and digital content is awesome and probably second to none. So, you know, this podcast is a big part of that as well. Yeah.
No, it's. I have to say, I'm nowhere near as kind of in terms of length of service, if you like, with Belzona. I'm nowhere near kind of at the stage that you're at. But one thing that did hit me when I did join was just how much resource there was online in terms of YouTube videos, webinars, presentations. There is so much to kind of go at, and like you said, the podcast kind of diverging into that just shows that we are really constantly expanding. So no, that was something I was very impressed with when I joined. So we touched on it in the introduction. You have quite a unique experience of you've mentioned it just then. You started in the UK in the north west of England as a sales engineer. You obviously now are based in Miami. So for the listeners, we obviously have our headquarters in Harrogate in the UK, as well as an office for the Americas in Miami. But you've also worked in our third other main office, let's call it, in Thailand as well. So when was that?
I've only made some shorter trips to Thailand, just a few periods with some training and different conferences and meetings. I spent actually 4 years working out of our Canadian office. So we have another office in Canada. So that was where I spent a chunk of my time between the UK and the US roles.
Okay, so are there many common trends in terms of industrial maintenance differences, practices that you've kind of recognised through your experience in working in these different regions?
Well, it's probably a little bit of a cliche. The common trend, I would say, is people. As much as we fix equipment or facilities, and we have the different products, we work with people. It really doesn't matter the industry, the country, or the continent. We have a person who has a problem, and we have Belzona people with the knowledge and resource to provide those solutions. One of the big things for Belzona is having local people who understand Belzona, understand the local culture, traditions, and can diagnose those problems and provide solutions is a huge plus for us. As far as some differences, I think the biggest difference I would say I've come across and have faced in the different places I've been with Belzona would be the environment and climate type conditions around the world. We, on any given project, you can face differences from sub-zero temperatures in Canada, extreme heat, say in the USA, and then high humidity and high heat in Asia Pacific. And of course, the unexpected rain showers in the UK.
Yeah, of course, famously mild weather. Great. Okay, so how does this experience help you in your role as a senior director in the company?
I think, like anything in life, knowledge is key. Knowing that we can have the same piece of equipment and problem, but it may have two different solutions because of location or climate, the country regulations. All this background helps us make plans. It's really important to communicate the experiences we've had, the knowledge we have back with all aspects of the company. And we use those to make improvements. These challenges drive our research and development and engineering teams in making products or making the application operate across a wide variety of conditions. And we learn how to accommodate to these conditions when applying our solutions.
Okay. So to kind of move from difference in conditions, maybe let's talk about a kind of pressing topic currently, the kind of situation that's obviously we've all found ourselves in 2020. It's been a very, very strange year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. How, in your experience, has this affected the markets Belzona operates in, and how do you see the future being affected?
Well, that's a good question, and I think many businesses wish they had a crystal ball to figure this out. But it
Yeah,
certainly was a strange year, and it was interesting. It's the first time in my recollection where
yeah,
globally, every country, every business almost was dealing with basically the same problem.
yeah,
But each region, country, even down in here in the US, where even each state handled it different.
yeah,
So there was a lot of regulations, a lot of systems that needed to be quickly learned and how to work within those. So that
yeah,
really affected how we went to market and how we did business. What we did see was typical markets, typical industries that we would count as our top working environments slowed down slightly, probably due
okay,
to the lack of travel and movement around. Oil took
yeah,
obviously a little bit of a dip.
yeah,
But the great thing for Belzona is we're not tied or reliant on a single industry. So we
no,
had a lot of new industries or developing industries that caught a bit of a boom or an increase. This offset some of the business we slowed in other areas,
yeah,
and this helped continue our business plan. We were very close to achieving our overall goals for the year, in spite of the pandemic, and we're going to continue to implement our plan and move forward.
So one thing you mentioned just in there was the need to adapt. How has Belzona adapted business practices and how we sell our products or take our products to market because of the pandemic?
Well, I think like a lot of organizations, there was some restrictions in physical movement of people and
Yeah,
face-to-face meetings, and that has been the backbone of Belzona is the support and contact face-to-face with our clients. So that
yeah,
did take some adaptation, and we've come through it very well. We're having a lot more virtual meetings via Teams and Zoom type of
yeah,
technology. Um, and to a certain degree, yes, we had to look outside of our core or focus industries and work on developing new ones, which we always do. So we were not at a standstill. We just
yeah,
redeployed some of our focus, and we've adapted. Nothing has completely come to a standstill. Nothing has
no,
stopped. Our manufacturing facilities remained open through the pandemic.
yeah,
Our customers got the support they needed, and we're gonna hopefully continue. My best guess is in a hybrid type fashion between
yeah,
pre-COVID-19 and what we've experienced in the last
yeah,
12 months. And this will see, a rebound of some of the more traditional and focus industries, but we'll
yeah.
retain all the new business and all the new industry focus we've put in place over the last 12 months, which should show growth overall for the company.
Great. So we've mentioned that you have experience all over the world. Now you are a big part of Belzona in the Americas, in the US, and obviously South America as well. So what are the main industries that you find Belzona being sold into in this region?
It's a great variety of industries, across the two continents of North America and South America and all the countries we have a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
Certainly oil and gas, petrochemical, power generation, mining are some of the core, heavily focused industries, same as they are globally. But some of the newer emerging industries or industries that we are becoming more accustomed to, and our solutions are finding traction within those industries, is we're continuing our strength in military. We saw a
Okay.
big increase in heating and ventilation repairs last year. Pulp and paper is a strong, growing industry for us. Power distribution. So it's not all just the power generation. The electricity has to get to people's businesses and homes. And, the continued transportation industry, whether it be warehousing and storage of facilities, right through to shipping vessels, so container ships or support vessels for rigs and platforms.
Great, and do you know what, that takes us very nicely actually onto to the kind of relevance of the topic that you've very kindly come onto today's podcast to talk about, which is the resin chocking systems. You mentioned marine there, so Belzone obviously does a lot in the marine sector in the US. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's across. Obviously, we've got again between the North and South America, we have a large coastline where there is lots of repair facilities and ports and docks. So there's lots of opportunity for ships to come in and seek repair. We have vessels come from all over the world because of some of the size and size of facility and equipment we have available in the Americas.
Great. Okay. So for any listeners out there who are new to chocks and chocking systems, can you explain exactly what is a chock?
Yeah, I mean, keeping it on its most simple level, a chock is the interface between the equipment and its foundation or the base. So almost all machinery and equipment must have a good contact with the surface it's mounted on. Typically, this isn't you pour a concrete slab or you have a metal base and you just put the equipment together. There's always a gap. So we need to make sure that gap is filled and there's 100% contact between the base and the piece of equipment. And traditionally, structures have been secured and mounted in several different ways. The original, kind of probably the earliest way of doing it would be to use metal chocks and shims to fill in the gap to make sure the equipment was at the right height and adjusted for alignment. But this takes pretty skilled workforce and can take a lot of time making sure everything is level and set.
Okay, so it sounds like metal chocks and shims obviously have their benefits, but also have some obvious downsides due to needing skilled labour and the cost you mentioned. So what are the other options out there?
Along with the metal shims and chocks, there's a variety of other options. Some I would say are not recommended by manufacturers. I've seen things just as simple as timber stakes driven in between the equipment. One very common option is a cementitious or a cement-based pourable mortar. These are just poured in between the substrate and the piece of equipment, and hopefully they fill the gap. They do take a long time to cure to full physical and mechanical strength, which can limit the return to service for the piece of equipment. So certainly there is problems that can be created by that technology.
Yeah, it sounds like cement-based mortars aren't quite the ideal solution either. What other further options are available then?
Well, it really brings us into our type of technology, which is a resin chocking system. So it can be used exactly the same way. It's a pourable system, and a flowable system, so it gets between the substrate and the equipment.
Okay.
You don't need a highly skilled labor force. You need competent labor, but not the highly skilled you would need for the metal shims. And it improves the performance over the metal shims or the cementitious chocks. It's an engineered product, so it's been designed specifically for this purpose. and it's cast in place and becomes a permanent piece between the two.
Okay. So do we see a benefit of using or from using resin chocks over metal or cement alternatives?
We can, and it depends on your outlook. So it depends where you're looking at the system from. So what we would say, if you encompass the entire project of aligning and setting a piece of equipment, the resin chocks are more cost effective and convenient. They reduce the downtime, and typically people's time or a piece of equipment's time from operating is the primary driver in cost or expense. So the reduction in downtime is good. Installation is very quick and very simple. Doesn't require specific or expensive machinery to install. And within, example, the marine industry, applications such as main engines, steering, gear assemblies, compressors, crane rails, everything that is critical for that ship's operation can benefit from a resin chock.
Great. So you obviously mentioned the resin chocks often being used in marine industry there. Do we see these solutions being used in any other industries as well?
Absolutely, yes. The marine industry, obviously, I think many people are familiar with it, but in general industry, we see it almost everywhere. A pump or a motor, one of the most or second most used pieces of equipment on the planet. Generators, compressors, crushers, they all need to be firmly mounted and set in place to operate at their optimum performance. So, using typical the cementitious grout or other solutions will be fine initially, but you'll get excess vibration, maybe cracking, and that will then result in potential damage to the equipment and shutdown of the plant. So in general industry, we can make use of the same features and benefits as the marine industry. We can utilize the resin chock to provide features such as pressure and impact resistance, eliminate vibration. We can precisely align equipment to avoid noise and vibration. And, the system is designed to carry a very high load bearing capacity. So, the equipment is mounted, is then secure and can operate and do its job.
Great. So I previously, or you previously mentioned there, chocking can be used in any industry. Can you name a few of the industries that you've seen a large need for chocking systems?
Richard, yeah, of course. We've seen it across the spectrum. What we've seen over the last couple of years is an increase in usage in petrochemical industry, oil and gas industry.
Okay.
Mining is becoming a bigger and bigger user of these types of systems because the equipment is very heavy and put under extreme stress and load. Lumber industry. So, lots of, before we have paper, we have to, transition trees into a source, and the equipment that does that is again very heavy and needs to be mounted securely to its foundation. Aggregates, sand processing, salt, almost any and every industry.
Quite a lot, yeah.
So, I mean, just an example from a couple of years ago at a coal mine. So it was a coal mine, large series of conveyors, and the drives for these conveyors were needing to be replaced. So the facility decided to optimize and replace a number of separate units with one larger, more efficient unit. This meant they couldn't just replace it on the same footprint, the same pads that had previously been on. So we proposed the Belzona solution to them, and they installed the drive precisely installed the drive and aligned it as per the manufacturer's requirements.
So, why was a resin used in this application for the gearboxes?
There's a number of benefits that the company shared with us for them. They were on a very, very short time frame from when they could shut the mine down to when they needed to be moving the coal, the product again, which was about 36 hours. And this was 36 hours to remove the old, clean and prepare the surface, install the new, chock it, align it, and then get it cured and get it back functioning. This was certainly important to them, and that's the reason they chose the resin system, because it was achievable. They could plan in advance, and then they could ensure, based on our data and testing, it would be back functioning within the 36-hour time limit.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is use on critical pieces of equipment in this mine you're talking about.
Absolutely. These gearboxes, these motors, they drove the main conveyor system for the mine, and certainly without coal being sent along that conveyor, the power plant at the other end didn't have a fuel source. So if you shut down a power plant, you have a knock-on effect to the grid, and other businesses and homes may not have power. So fairly critical piece of equipment.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about the technology of the system used. So is this one of Belzona's regular protective coatings being used, or is it something a bit different?
No, it's not one of our traditional coatings in the sense. The requirements for a chocking system, an engineered chocking system, were very different. The Belzona 7111 was specified to replace materials we had been using. It's more cost effective. It's 100% solids. And it's designed. It was designed from formulation up to endure the physical and thermal shocks common in the environments we planned. We needed it to be readily pourable, flow, and spread evenly across irregular surfaces. And we needed it to be able to support heavy equipment and loads.
Okay, so you mentioned an engineered system that is designed there. So for the listeners, what exactly does that mean?
Well, it starts out, we define a brief, we define a set of criteria we want to achieve. So we looked throughout industry and throughout the design process that companies undertake, and we then provide our chemists with the brief of a new product we want, and what factors, including the industry's applications, we want to use it on, and what properties, both physical and mechanical, we would need to achieve, to have, to obtain some of the third-party approvals, for instance. We wish to have the product be third-party approved, because that's very common and needed in the marine and other industries. The final formulation should be used on an application where we're able to calculate and confirm that the product will do what the customer wants it to do what the manufacturer believes their equipment can do. And ultimately, the client who's installing it wants the assurance they have a product that will meet that application.
So this product was specifically designed for this problem. Kind of with that in mind, from feedback, obviously from customers and your experience, what would you say the main, most impressive features and properties are that make the product stand out?
Most impressive properties. Wow.
This is back to your days as an FSE in the north of England.
Absolutely. I mean, the function of the product is important. So For this, the product was, again, I've said it a couple of times, it was designed to bear and support very high load and stresses. So when with this type of product, you can't afford for it to have any defects or entrapment or problems which would, once installed, cause the load to be shift or move or not be supported 100%. So certainly load bearing capacities are a big plus for us. The ease of use, you can have the best product in the world, but if it's too difficult to use or not practical to use, it's not going to be adopted by the industry. And then, something that is sometimes overlooked, we've talked about being used on marine vessels and in, a wide variety of industries. Certainly that means we have the opportunity to use it globally. And what we want to be able to do is have this product available to everyone. So we designed our product with a very long storage and shelf life for this type of technology, this type of product, and that allows the different distributors and stockists of Belzona to hold the product locally for its clients and not worry about having to fly it in as an emergency, which adds to the cost and complexity. And if you're in a short time frame, we have it available, and some of the other systems are not. So, those are three that pretty much stand out to me.
Okay, so how does our audience ensure that the claims and numbers here are supported and that the system will work for them?
Well, hopefully Belzona over the last almost 70 years has built up a trusted reputation with clients, but as we previously discussed, it was not one of our typical or usual systems. So, for this system and what it's used for, it's all about data. It's all about the testing criteria and the test numbers we can produce. So, we perform many in-house tests, but we perform them to internationally recognized standards. We don't modify those tests. We don't adjust them to publish a very strong number. We perform the test as it was written by the specification company who designed it. We also then, for this product and many others, we look at outside testing or outside approval authorities that will take our product and put it through its paces and run tests. So, this particular product, the Belzona 7111, carries independent approvals from ABS, the American Bureau of Shipping, Lloyd's Register, Class NK, and many more.
Okay, great. And again, that's something that hopefully all the listeners are familiar with. We touched on it in the last episode of the podcast. And that's a constantly evolving process, isn't it, with the independent approvals and the like. And I only say that because I know maybe it's not something I can mention here, but in the background we are looking at further approvals for this product currently.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we it's not a one-time approval and then you forget about it. These organisations have the right to audit us, a surprise audit, a moment's notice, and periodically, depending on the organisation, we have to go through a renewal process, and we have to prove it's the same product. We have to prove we've not changed ingredients. We have to prove that we've maintained all the necessary steps to meet their approval, and we do that in many ways. But we follow a ISO 9001 process in our facilities, both manufacturing and administration, and that helps us keep us on track and make sure we operate at the right level.
Great. So if we wanted to find out more about Belzona 7111 and other Belzona products, how would we go about doing that?
Well, there's many ways you can get to know about Belzona. Probably one of the greatest resources and starting point for most folks is visit our website, www.belzona.com. From there, you can find a variety of information on both individual products such as Belzona 7111, right through to some of the many industries and applications we've touched on today. Another useful page on the website for anyone considering a Belzona option is where to find their nearest Belzona distributor or Belzona office. We have a finder on there. You type in your location and we'll give you the coordinates of the right people.
That's a global finder as well.
Absolutely, anywhere in the world, and I don't think there's a place you can plug in that we don't give you an answer.
Good. Okay, good. Great. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end there, Barry. Just want to say thank you so much for taking your time out to join us. Really appreciated having you here, and actually really found your insight very interesting. So thank you. Hope you've enjoyed it.
I have, Richard. Thank you very much for having me, and it's been fun. And I hope to get on another episode soon.
I'm sure we can wangle that. Absolutely. Great. So like I said, that about wraps it up for today. For everyone listening, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and actually we hope you've enjoyed the season as a whole. Please do not forget to like or subscribe so you do not miss out on any future Belzona content. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. For information on what we've discussed today, or as Barry has just said, information on anything related to Belzona solutions or services, please visit our website, www.belzona.com. Thank you to all my guests who have joined us across season 1 of the Belzona podcast, as well as all the colleagues who have helped produce what has been the first season of the podcast. Especially big thank you to everybody for listening and getting involved. We are currently preparing and planning season 2. We've got some very exciting guests and episodes penciled in. For more content on all things engineering and coating related, we will definitely be back soon in the near future, so watch this space. Until next time, goodbye.